a quick outline of what I'm going to cover. I'll start off with our aims, talk about the differences between professional doctorates and the traditional PhD, and then go through very briefly our training program, our industry partners, what research opportunities you'll have, and very importantly, the research and development framework within which our program is embedded. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a clear understanding of what we're offering, who we're offering it to, and how we're delivering that program. So let me start off with our aims. So we've got four main aims. Primarily, we want to expand doctoral research skills in the UK. And we want to do this by addressing the skills gap. We know that there is a skills gap. If we just look at data-centric engineering type job adverts posted on various job sites, we know that there's a gap because many of those jobs still remain unfilled after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And this is something that we keep an eye on to see how well the demand is being filled. So this has already been picked up by the government already a few years ago, and it's part of the UK government's industrial strategy. They recognise that the skills are in high demand. We don't have enough of them within the UK, and we need to start thinking of new ways of filling that demand. And that's what this program is about. So that's the first of our aims. The second one is to do this by addressing barriers to doctoral training. So the traditional route into doctoral training is to do a BSc, then a master's possibly, and then into your PhD. And it's a fairly linear kind of process. And whilst that may be fairly standard for a lot of people, it can have barriers for some individuals. So the sorts of barriers that we have heard people talk of when we discuss with our doctoral candidates are things like vocational relevance. So people don't see the need for doing a PhD to go into the job they want to do. They don't see the relevance of it. There's issues about financial barriers. Maybe people want to start a family, and starting a family is just not possible on a student stipend. Or it could just be about recognizing your own confidence, right? So you've done your BSc, you've done your MSci degree, but even though you've got a good qualification, you're still not confident that the PhD, that you've got the ability to do a PhD or a doctoral qualification. So those are some of the barriers that people face, and we come across this time and time again. So we want to address those. We want to diversify talent, so we want to make research inclusive. When I introduced Queen Mary to you, I said that we have an ambition to be the most inclusive university of its kind. We know for a very long time that STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subjects, so otherwise known as STEM, those subjects typically tend not to attract women. And people from Black, Asian, and minority ethnic backgrounds, or BAME backgrounds, are much less likely to go into research degrees for a multitude of reasons. But we completely recognize that, and we want to try and reverse that trend. We want to try and tackle that trend. And we feel that that's part of our mission statement here at Queen Mary. The last of our aims is to increase industry investment in research. So we know that the UK research environment is the best in the world, without a doubt. We punch well above our weight in terms of our research output compared to the rest of the world, and indeed compared to the US, for example, our closest competitor. The problem that the UK has is that we are not very good at translating that research knowledge into commercial success. So taking that research out from universities and engaging with companies is something we are not very good at. And that's been known for a long time. So we want to try and address a new way of doing that. We'll do that by building integrated communities between industry and academia. And that's why our our industry partners are incredibly important in this particular program that I'll explain. So those are our aims. This diagram shows you, or tries to kind of explain what our program is. So we've set up what we call a Centre for Doctoral Training, or a CDT, where we bring together all the different elements that we need in order to address the aims that I outlined. So first and foremost, we've designed a qualification a professional doctorate known as an engineering doctorate or an EngD, which is a 4-year research program completely equivalent to a PhD. And we'll deliver that as part of our center in partnership with our industry partners. And I'll introduce you to some of those partners shortly in this presentation. And we want to try and attract 2 different streams of people into our Center for Doctoral Training. So those 2 streams are indicated by these 2 black arrows on the diagram. So on the one hand, we've got what we're calling professional doctoral scholars or PDSs. And on the other hand, we've got enterprise doctoral scholars or EDSs. And the difference between them is that we're looking at professional doctoral scholars as people who have been out of academia for at least 3 years, if not more, but they will remain in full-time employment with their employer, and they will continue to be paid their full salary by their current employer. And the employer then engages in the research project. So the research project is defined by the employer, and they work together with the professional doctoral scholar and academics at Queen Mary to progress that research, and the tuition fees are then paid for by Queen Mary, by ourselves. So that's a professional doctoral scholar. There is a second route, which are the enterprise doctoral scholars or the EDSs on the right side of this diagram. So the EDSs are those people who have also been out of academia for at least 3 years, if not more. They will leave their current employment and enter into full-time study, and they will receive a tax-free stipend of up to £20,500. So that's roughly equivalent to about £25,000 taxable salary, but it's tax-free at 20,000, just over £20,000. The tuition fees will be paid by Queen Mary, and they will undertake periods of research with our industry partners at set points during the 4-year program. So both the PDSs and the EDSs, so the professional doctoral scholars and the enterprise doctoral scholars, will come to Queen Mary, study with us, and undergo induction, reorientation training to reorientate you guys back into academia. There'll be fully integrated training, which I'll go through shortly. You'll be fully supervised by Queen Mary academics, just like all other PhD students, and there will be additional research mentoring. So that in a nutshell is the diagram, and I'm going to try and go through some of these elements in a little bit more detail to make it more concrete for you. So first of all, let's tackle the qualification question. So a professional doctorate is a recognized research qualification, and it is only universities that have the power to award those degrees. So no other organizations can offer them, only universities. They are very similar to PhDs. Just like a PhD, these are doctorates which are research-based qualifications. So it's not just that you take a few courses, sit an exam, pass it, and you're done. You have to generate new knowledge. That's the key point. You have to do the research, which is the main part of the program, and contribute new knowledge, supervised by an academic at Queen Mary. And you will summarize that research in a final dissertation. So that's a requirement. That dissertation will then be assessed by 2 expert examiners from anywhere across the world. Anyone who has the relevant experience can be chosen to do that. And the final assessment of the engineering doctorate, just like a PhD, will be an oral examination known as the Viva, and that will be conducted by those 2 examiners. And at the end of it, if you pass, you'll gain the title of a doctor. So that's the similarity with a PhD. That's exactly the same as a PhD. The engineering doctorate differs from the PhD in the sense that it requires substantial industrial applications. So in other words, part of that research will be done through the industry placements, or it will comprise of applied work-based placed research. So it tends not to be much more of the sort of fundamental science that goes on in a PhD. And in order to ease that, there is the option of comprising a portfolio of research topics. So it's not one, it doesn't have to be one big 4-year project that you dive into and immerse yourself into for 4 years. You can, in discussion with your academic supervisor, chop it up into 4 related topics. And we think that that's going to be more amenable to industrial partners. They may have very specific elements that they want to answer, research topics they want to answer And so that makes it a bit more appealing to a company than necessarily one big project. A single big project is not excluded, but this is a key difference to a PhD. So that briefly summarizes the main points of the similarities and the differences between a PhD. Okay, so now let me talk about the training program that we'll put together. So first of all, professional doctoral training and research is something that we have a very strong track record in here at Queen Mary. We have recognized leadership in doctoral training and research, and we participate in a number of different types of scheme that the UK research councils and charities offer in order to train doctoral students. So they're typically called doctoral training partnerships, or DTPs, or Centers for Doctoral Training, CDTs. So there's a lot of acronyms flying around, so I'm going to try and take my time and explain them. But basically, they're two different flavors of doctoral training, and they tend to be offered by the research councils, and you see their logos on the right-hand side. So there I've just picked out the Natural Environment one at the top, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council next. My own home research council is the Science and Technology Facilities Council, which funds particle physics and astronomy, and the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council. And they're helped by the UK Research and Innovation that tries to marry that research with industry, and we have a few other organizations that also fund our research. So we've got a very strong track record in doctoral training, and some examples are the Natural Environment Research Council's doctoral training partnership, which we undertake together with University College London, King's College London, Kew Gardens, and the Natural History Museum. So they're all partners, and we all deliver on that DTP. Similarly, we have the Biological Science Research Council doctoral training partnership, and that's delivered in partnership with University College London and King's College London. My own DTP is one in particle physics and astronomy, so that's one that I run in my own school. Oops, sorry. Let me see, where was I? And we have a number of centers for doctoral training. So we have the data-centric engineering one, which is the one we're talking about today. But on top of that, we have centers for doctoral training in media arts technology, artificial intelligence in music, AI in games, data-intensive science in fundamental physics and plastic electronics. And there's a few more as well that I'm sure that I've forgotten. So that's just to set the backdrop of who we are and our pedigree in delivering research. So what we've done is taken that experience and tried to build a new program of research training. And our program that we're putting forward is, I think, novel, it's enriched and integrated with industry. And our main aim here is to recognize the non-typical routes into doctoral training. So the program that we're offering here has four main pillars. The first of those is advanced taught courses. So I did say at the beginning that a PhD or an engineering doctorate is not about the taught courses. It's not exclusively about taught courses. So obviously you need to get up to speed with relevant techniques and skills within your particular discipline. So there will be advanced taught courses that our scholars will undertake. And we have put together a program of 6 taught courses delivered in years 1 to 3, and I'll talk about those in a bit more detail shortly. The second pillar is the industrial engagement. So our professional doctoral scholars are employed by industry partners anyway, so they're already in their industrial environment and they're engaging with us as academics. The enterprise doctoral scholars, however, will be scholars in full-time study at Queen Mary, and we will arrange together with you placements of up to 3 months each with our industry partners. And that will give you an opportunity to take your research skills and then apply them pretty much immediately on commercial problems that the employer will put forward. So that industrial engagement is a central element of our program. We have research projects, of course, so no program in doctoral training is complete without a research project, and there's a very broad range of those available through our program. And of course, we have researcher development training, which is all about the training that you get, which is not specific to your research. So it's about the general skills that you will need as a researcher, irrespective of the particular problem you're happening to look at. So I'll give you some examples of that. Now, in terms of the taught courses, there are 3 core modules that we deliver, and they are research methods and responsible innovation, statistical thinking and engineering mathematics, and machine learning. So those will be delivered, and all of the students on the program will take those. But in addition to that, you'll have a choice of up to something like 30 other relevant data-intensive science and engineering courses taken from our master's programs across the university. So there's a lot of choice there, and you'll be guided in those choices with your supervisor, because not all of them will be relevant, or not all of them will have the background knowledge for. So we need to kind of plan that carefully depending on what your chosen research topic and project is. My next page shows you what that training looks like and how it sort of fits together. So it's a bit of a complex diagram, and you don't need to absorb all of that immediately. You'll get a copy of the slides and can look through this. So the top line here, do you see my cursor moving? If I move it like that, you do, great. So this top line here are the core research modules that I talked about. So research methods and responsible innovation, the statistical thinking, the machine learning. So that's everybody takes. And then here there's a sample of the sorts of electives that we offer our students, and you would have that discussion with a supervisor as to which of those is appropriate for you. That's broken down into this table on the bottom here, where year by year you can see what are the particular parts of the program you'll be engaging with. So in year 1, you'll undertake 2 core modules, and you'll be taking, starting off on your research, the green element here, and you'll be taking the transferable skills, other activities. That will continue in year 2. You'll take some 1 core module and an elective. You'll start your one of your industrial placements. If you're an enterprise doctoral scholar, you'll be continuing your research, and there'll be opportunities to undertake the transferable skills training as well. Same in year 3, and in year 4, you won't really be taking any taught modules at that point, because we think you'll have acquired all the skills that you need by that point, and should be focusing on wrapping up your research and writing up your dissertation to a standard that's publishable in international research journals. So that's the expectation of the program. The sorts of activities included in this orange section here will include things like reorientation to academic studies. So we appreciate that some of you have been out of academia for a long time, maybe even a very long time. So you probably want some guidance on how to navigate and negotiate university environments. So that's part of a reorientation induction process. You will have regular personal training plan meetings with your supervisor, just to make sure that you're picking up the skills that you need for the research problem. We will plan PhD cohort days where all of the scholars get together and present the research they've been working on collaboratively. So you get to see what everyone else is doing, and you get to know one another. And that's part of the design of our program. We want you to work together as a cohort, as peers that can help support one another. Nobody knows better than you what it's like working in industry and then coming back into academia. So it's better that you help yourselves, and we'll provide, the framework and guidance and support to help you do that. Recognizing imposter syndrome is something that's a key element, and we'll be helping you recognize that if that's an issue with you, and so on. So there's a lot of the transferable skills training that will happen. Okay. As an example, on my next slide, I just want to show you one of the core modules. So this is an example of the research methods and responsible innovation module. So that's split up into five different categories. So we have responsible research and innovation. So that's a topic covering things like research ethics, which is a huge topic right now, especially in data science and artificial intelligence. How can we make sure that the algorithms we develop have ethics built in? So there's lots of discussion now about self-driving cars, autonomous cars. how are they making decisions, what to do in the event of, I don't know, a crash or something like this. These are really important questions that we can't just leave and not discuss. We have to be trained in recognizing ethical considerations in the research that we do. So there's an element of that that's in this course. We're going to talk about communicating research. That's absolutely crucial. You can't be a world leader in your particular field or discipline if you're unable to communicate that. So you have to be able to present it at conferences, you have to be able to discuss it with your peers, and you have to be able to explain the nitty-gritty of what you've done so that it's up for peer review and people can comment on your research and perhaps give you ideas of how you might take it further. So writing that in journal standard publications is a key element of communicating your research. We'll talk about quantitative research methods. So a lot of that will be based on mathematics and statistical methods. And of course, that's all done through computational methods. So we'll be learning computer languages like R and Python a bit later. That brings us on to programming and practical skills. Because a lot of it will depend on computing, it's important that you're introduced to what we're calling software carpentry. So just the ability to know how to use different software environments, different software programs together holistically in order to progress your research. And the upcoming language now that is used pretty much everywhere is Python. So there'll be an introductory workshop on Python skills as well. And then finally, presentation skills, presenting that to an audience, giving a poster presentation and so on. So that's just an example of the RMRI course that we're delivering. And if you want a bit more detail, the next page shows that, and you can see how we break it up. It's typically delivered 1 day per week with a morning session on lectures and an afternoon section, which might be facilitated discussion where you get together as a group and work through problems or examples yourself and present to one another, again, building that cohort identity and making sure that that peer learning is a really key element of what you've learned in the morning session. So that's how typically our program will run, our talk modules will run. Okay, so let me come on to the second of our pillars of the training program, and that's our industrial partners. So industrial engagement is really at the heart of this program. And here I've got some of the logos of our current partners. So Plextech, IBM, BBC, you recognize, I'm sure. Kinetic is a defense firm that we work together with. And Dupree is a firm that develops orthopedic devices. So synthetic legs and arms and implants in the body is what Dupree do. And they do a lot of research in terms of new materials that are safe to implant in a body for decades at a time without any problems with toxicity and so on. So these are our current partners, and we're seeking to expand those partners to deliver collaborative research projects and industry training for our enterprise doctoral scholars, as well as taking the employees from those companies to take their research and elevate it at the same time, simultaneously as working for their professional doctoral qualification. So our professional doctoral scholars are employed by those organizations, and our enterprise doctoral scholars will be conducting research and taking placements with these and other companies, and we will help source those placements for the enterprise doctoral scholars. And we're very flexible here. So because this is a pilot program, we want to not put our own barriers in the way. So we understand that each of our applicants is unique with your own unique background and your own unique set of circumstances. So we're going to try and work flexibly with you as individuals and our partners to get the best out of this for everyone. Okay, the third part is the research component. So we've tried to divide the research in data-centric engineering into very broad, major interdisciplinary research themes, and they cover things like researching digital creative industries. So that's something that we have a lot of experience and expertise in. My colleague Nick Bryan-Kins, who I think is here, is leading very much on that effort for the university. Material science and condensed matter physics, so designing new materials, materials that can operate in very extreme set of physical conditions, for example, is another hot topic that we have a lot of research ongoing in. Data science, of course, is kind of exploding everywhere. It's a very important topic nowadays. Control and systems engineering. So my colleague Jun Chen is an expert in this and is applying techniques in systems engineering to the sorts of partners that he has. And robotics, which sort of merges a lot of these techniques as well, is another strength that we have at Queen Mary. Those are just examples, and they're not, we're not limiting ourselves. So if you were to join us as a scholar on our program, then of course we will refine the project with you, and you will have access to the full run of research facilities available within the university, which includes by default our high performance computing systems as appropriate to the needs of your project. So that will be something that you discuss at the time of selecting your project and selecting your supervisor. They will have a much better understanding of what you'll need and where to get it from. And our job as the management of this program is to help facilitate that access where it's necessary. So I invite you to explore the projects on offer through each of our schools. And when you get a copy of these slides, you'll see that these are the 5 schools. These are links, and you can point your browser to those links and you'll see a range of research topics. There will have to be a little bit of discussion about which of those fit into the remit of data-centric engineering, but there'll be some guidance on 2 supervisors on that. Please feel free to contact any of our academics. So browse through these web pages. If you see a topic that sounds interesting, drop an email to that academic and engage them. Tell them that you're interested in the data-centric engineering program and see whether that particular project is appropriate for data-centric engineering, or if they have other suggestions. So please do go ahead and do that. We're going to give much more advice on the research proposals in workshop 2, and that will run on the 13th of April. So please do join us for that. Okay, there's some more examples of doctoral research projects. So this is a screenshot of our webpage. The link is down here. So again, point your browsers there to see a small selection of topics that our supervisors have put forward for this program. Okay, so in the last few minutes, I want to turn my attention to transferable skills. So this is the 4th of the 4 pillars of our training. And I want to briefly flash up this complicated looking diagram here. So this is what we're calling the researcher development framework. So developing researchers with the right skills has been an ongoing conversation within the UK's higher education sector for about 10 years or so. So it's nothing new. And it's recognized that being an expert in just one very specific research topic is not really sufficient for success. You need to be aware of many other skills and so on. So this researcher development framework was born, and it's a nationally agreed framework for skills and recognizing different types of skills that researchers need. And I'm not going to go through this in detail. You'll have plenty of opportunity to engage with this later, but I do just want to motivate what it's about. So the skills are divided into 4 domains, A, B, C, and D. And the idea is that any person doing doctoral level research engages in upskilling themselves across all of those 4 domains. So not just focusing on one specific area. So domain A is probably the one that you're most familiar with. It's about the knowledge base. It's about the stuff that you really need for your particular research area. And these are the sorts of topics it might include and what you might have to do in order to demonstrate that you've trained in that area. So that's domain A. And very quickly, I'm just going to flash here the other domains, B, C, and D. So domain B relates to the personal qualities that are needed to become an effective researcher. So that might be things like self-management or your career development itself. Domain C is about the knowledge of the standards and requirements of professionalism in order to do the research. So this is about research governance and the organization of research and the management of research and the financing of it. So being able to administer and manage funding for research is a key skill. Not everybody has it, and you should have training in how to manage that well. And then finally, domain D relates to the knowledge and skills to work with others. So again, you're never going to work in isolation. You're always going to be working collaboratively with many different types of people, each of which brings different skills and perspectives to your research problem. So being able to work with others is a really key part. So domain D covers things like engagement with stakeholder communities for your research, and the communication and the dissemination of your research. These are all key elements. So that briefly summarizes the last of those 4 pillars of our bespoke training program. And that brings me to the end of this part of the presentation. So just to summarize, Queen Mary is offering a unique program to expand doctoral skills in the UK. We really want to open brand new routes into research degrees. So let me emphasize, nobody else in the UK is doing this. So we are absolutely unique in trialing this new method. And our tack is to put our emphasis on what skills and competencies you have that you need in order to be a successful researcher. So it's less about your academic qualifications and more about, are you able to do this task or this particular thing that you'll need for research, right? So it's much more based on skills and competencies. And we'll talk about that in the next workshop, where as part of your application, you'll be asked to develop and demonstrate those skills and competencies. And we'll take you through that. We're not just gonna let you go away and write paragraphs on that. We will take you through what we mean and what are the sorts of examples we're looking for. I also want to mention, or should mention, that we aim to use our applied research to benefit not just you as individuals or us as academics at Queen Mary, but also the UK economy. So it's those 3 things coming together that we really want to benefit. And as I mentioned before, we want to address the barriers that have stopped people in the past from making decisions about entering into research. So we want to make research a truly inclusive thing. And I'm going to end here with a quote taken from our recently published 10-year strategy called Queen Mary 2030. You can find it on our webpage. And I really hope you agree with me that the aim of this program is to unleash people's potential. Okay, thank you very much.